Hey everyone, welcome back to the American Justice Podcast Q&A edition for episode 11. I'm your co-host C. Derick Miller, and over there on the other side of Dallas, Texas is Mr. Scott Pogensy. Scott, how you doing?
Things are good over here, man. We are just working and getting this podcast ready for everybody, and it's getting. I think it's getting to the good stuff. Like I feel like we've kind of laid the groundwork for a lot of the stuff that went on during the beginning parts of the investigation, but now that Brandon's under arrest, it is the wheels are about to fall off.
It's about time. it's been a bit of a build up.
Yeah.
But it's all important information, though. It's information that people need to hear, which puts me on the subject of a review that someone left recently. I believe this was on Apple Podcasts.
Yes, that's correct.
I don't have a name.
There's not an actual person's name, but there's the name of their account that they put on there. What was it? And so it goes on, or something like that. That's like the name of their Apple Podcast account.
Oh, it goes on and on.
Goes on and on. That's what it is, yeah.
The Energizer Bunny left this review.
Never stops.
Oh, never.
Wait a second. I got a question. Is this our first negative review?
I think this is our first negative review from the Energizer Bunny.
How could somebody have a negative review of us? I don't understand.
I don't know, but the name on Apple Podcast goes on and on. So it's either the Energizer Bunny or one of my exes. So more than likely, you have a better chance of it being one of my exes than the Energizer Bunny.
Oh yeah, well, hopefully it's not either one, but we'll see.
All right, it reads. I guess this person left a review and then they changed it. It says, I'm modifying my review as this is now unbearable. If the host eliminated the sarcasm and the endless Q&As, this could be a 5-episode podcast. Clearly the host is not an attorney, and thus far, every piece of incriminating evidence could or should have been addressed by Brandon's attorney. Also, the host and his sidekick, aw, I'm your sidekick, find it amusing to mock Jews and other groups in their discussion. Abhorrent all around. Okay, in my defense, I was not mocking Jews. I was doing an impression of my Jewish ex-father-in-law. I'm the one that had to put up with that dude for like 11 years. So I don't care what you say.
Well, I think
that's my part.
I think there's a little bit of kind of in this world. There's a people kind of jump too far when they're like political correctness. I don't think I have this discussion with a lot of my coworkers quite often because I work with a Mexican guy, I work with a few black people, I work with a Jewish person. We have a pretty good melting pot at work, and we talk about this all the time. And it seems like you just can't say anything about any kind of race or any kind of religious preference. You can't talk about Christians. You can't even talk about them without somebody getting offended. And
right.
Absolutely the stuff that we said was lighthearted. There was no hate or anything like that involved in it. It was all just joking around, and so I don't feel bad about that at all. There's no reason that you can't have fun with people. I'm just going to go on record as to say that I think I know you fairly well. And I know that there is not a racist bone in your body. I know that you were not saying anything about the Jewish people,
right,
derogatory. Same thing with me. I absolutely, positively have nothing against any race. I'm probably the most. Let's see. I'm going to use. No, I can't say. I was going to use a Trumpism, but I won't even go there. But let's just say I may be the most accepting person you've ever met.
Right. Like I have members of my family that are black. I have members of my family that are Hispanic. I have members of my family that are like huge activists in the LGBTQ community.
Right.
Like my family is such a melting pot. Both of my grandfathers were full-blood Native American.
Nice.
But I've had people get on to me before in a couple of my novels where I've used the word Indian instead of Native American. Look, man, I'm one of those people that's like a live and let live. I don't care what you look like or where you come from. Exactly. If you're a good person, I love you. If you're a bad person, jump off a cliff.
Right. I mean, paraphrasing a very great man, he said, what did he say? I want to be judged by my character and not by the color of my skin. That's absolutely everybody in this world should be judged by their character and the things that they say and do, and not by where they come from or what religion they have or what they believe or anything like that. So
yeah.
All right. So that's
goes on Apple Podcasts. You can just keep on going, baby, because you're barking up the wrong tree.
Just keep on going. What was the other? What was the first part of that? Something about Brandon's attorneys or something? I'm not an attorney.
Let's see. The host is not an attorney, and thus far, every piece of incriminating evidence could or should have been addressed by Brandon's attorney.
Well, it's funny because I have a feeling that the goes on is not an attorney either. Because there's a lot of stuff that we've talked about that is inadmissible. Specifically,
right.
A lot of the stuff about Mike, a lot of the stuff about, just things that nobody ever called Mike as a witness. So as Susan Constantine said, she understands why the prosecution didn't cause him or call him as a witness, because he would absolutely, positively impeach himself. And that's exactly what was happening here, is because Mike was never called as a witness by the state. We were not allowed to, the defense was not allowed to bring in any of these, incriminating statements that he made. And then a lot of people say, well, why didn't the defense call him? And the answer to that is, from what I understand from the attorneys that I have talked to, is you cannot call a witness for the mere intent of just impeaching them. In other words, if you're going to call a witness, they have to have material facts pertinent to the case. You can't just call someone up there, and as soon as you call them up there, say, "You're a liar, aren't you?" So they have to have something pertinent to the case. So a lot of the stuff that we're talking about that's exculpatory to Brandon, that shows that he didn't do it, is either not admissible, or there's a lot of the stuff that I've been able to uncover myself from the investigation that I've been doing, that was not known about or not realized back then. So yes, is there some stuff that we talk about that the attorneys should have brought up in trial? Absolutely. But again, we'll talk about this when we're covering the trial, is that basically there's things that we're not able to bring up because of the fact that, I'm trying to dance around the issue, but basically his attorneys had some personal issues. There were some things going on that caused them not to be 100% prepared. And I think even Katie Ferguson would admit that she was brought in very late in the trial. She was only supposed to be questioning I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but she was only supposed to be questioning the expert witnesses. And then the first day of trial, Jerry Spencer Davis had so many issues going on, he barely even could cross-examine the first witness. So the way that Katie put it to me was that she kind of, basically put her hand on his shoulder and was like, hey, you're not to where you once were. I got this. I'll take over or whatever. So she had very, very little time to prepare. So there was a lot of stuff that, yes, a lot of people go back and they kind of criticize the defense about, well, you should have brought this up or you should have brought that up, or, but there was just so many things going on at the time that it was just impossible. Not to mention the fact that they were court appointed to Brandon, so they didn't have resources from the court that are normally afforded to people when they're paying for their own defense. So, and one last point about goes on and on. I think he or she, I don't know which one it is, but they said that we should only have, before they revised the comment, they said we should only have the Q&A episodes once a week. And I agree with that, Derick. What do you think? Should we only do it once a week?
We should. We should only do our once a week Q&A session once a week.
All right. So goes on and on. We are listening to you, and we are revising our whole format from once a week Q&As to now we're only doing Q&As once a week.
Once a week.
Thank you for the input.
But thank you for listening. Goes on and on. Whatever you do, don't start a marathon of the Lord of the Rings movies. That's going to drive you insane.
They go on and on.
Let's get to our first question.
Let's get to our real
week.
questions. Yes.
Yeah, our first question comes from Aiden in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
OKC.
Terry Jones says to Brandon that his sister admitted she took medicine and she told them he did not. So why are they taking the word of a self-admitted psychopath over Brandon's? Ouch. Okay.
Well, hold on a second. What was the name? Aiden? Come on, Aiden. We don't.
Aiden.
Aiden. Okay. We can't say that Charla is a psychopath. She's not a self-admitted psychopath. She is a self-admitted, I have some psychiatric issues going on. But someone that's a psychopath and having psychiatric issues is totally different. So, Aiden, watch your words. They're very. Wait a second. Did I just come to the defense of Charla?
You did. You did.
What?
Charla, whatever your last name is now, formerly Woodruff. If you're watching this, we did come to your defense.
Yeah, watch your words,
Aiden. We scolded Aiden from Oklahoma City for doing that. So, just if ever you wanted to put in the win column for Scott and Chad, there you go.
That's right. How dare you, Aiden?
But to the question.
Okay, sorry.
Would you like me to reread it? We kind of went off.
Yes, I would like you to reread it, please.
Okay. Terry Jones says to Brandon that his sister admitted she took medicine and she told them that he did not. So why are they taking the word of Charla? Why did I say
Charla?
Jeez. Wow.
Don't tell me one of your exes is named Chandra.
Anyway, so why are they taking the word of Charla over please. Brandon?
This is kind of an interesting question, because I don't necessarily think that they're taking the word of her over him, because at this point, the things that were kind of conflicting were just stuff about the family, like Charla said that, her dad was abusing her, and Brandon said, no, he didn't abuse us. So it was just kind of family. I think kind of what the investigators probably considered maybe second tier information. It doesn't really have anything to do with the guilt or innocence of whoever did this. It's just kind of cursory information that we'll put in the back of our mind. So, but when it came down to what they were there for, right? They were there to find out who killed these two people. When it came down to that information, that's when they were just listening to what Brandon was saying. He was saying that he was leaving the Heath house at 8:00. So they zeroed in on that. So that didn't have anything to do with Charla. Charla didn't say anything about Brandon's timeline, I don't think. So that didn't, so it wasn't like they were taking her word over his at this point. I think they were just kind of like, okay, she's got one view of the family. He's got another view of the family. It really isn't until Charla's second interview, which I think is like 2 or 3 days after Brandon's arrested. It really isn't until the second interview when Charla comes in and is like basically pointing the finger straight at Brandon. But by that time, Brandon's already arrested. So yes, at that point, once we get to that interview, then it becomes a very valid question. Why are you believing her over him when now they have not only conflicting stories about the family, but now they have very conflicting stories about what happened that night and where he was and that type of stuff. And when we get to that episode, it's going to be pretty interesting hearing how their stories do conflict.
Right. Well, Aiden from Oklahoma City, remember what we told you, play nice, and thank you for your question.
Thank you for your question.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here from one of our sponsors, and we will come right back with our last two questions. Stick around.
C. Derick Miller is an author, producer, and gonzo journalist from the conservative community of Greenville, Texas. Sam Cloud Miller is a graphic artist and a liberal civil rights activist from Austin, Texas. Combine those two and what do you have? Magic. Recorded in the Bishop Arts District of Dallas, it's a podcast that is sure to never disappoint. They talk about books, film, music, today's topics, and life in general. Even though they may disagree on the topics from time to time, they'll always kiss and make up. It's a practice that America needs to relearn, don't you think? No filters, no scripts, and no schedule. Catch the Butterflies Make Me Angry podcast on Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. Peace to the peaceful, truth to the masses, hell to the tyrants. Get all the details at cderickmiller.com.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the American Justice Podcast Q&A edition for episode 11. We are in the second part now. We're going to go to our last two questions. First of all, let me clear the air. I did have an ex named Chandra, and she was a self-admitted psychopath. So...
Did you just not want to say that because your wife is in the background there?
No. She's well aware of who this person is as well. So...
okay. I was gonna say I thought that name sounded familiar. I just didn't.
I saw self-admitted psychopath. It was a C name, and it went right to that. So, the human brain is a crazy thing. Crazy.
Oh, but remember, we're not accusing Charla of being a psychopath.
No, we are not.
We're just accusing her of having what she admits to psychiatric problems. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
It's a very fine distinction.
Exactly. Let's jump on to question 3. Question 3 comes from Debbie from Plano. Oh my God.
Debbie from Plano.
Debbie from Plano.
I never could have seen it coming.
I think we have a little something for Debbie from Plano. We should play that.
Do we have something?
We do.
Okay, let's play it.
Debbie from Plano, she writes in every week. She believes in Brandon's innocence, it's justice that she seeks. We'd love to hear her thoughts, her wrath we won't incur. We need more listeners just like her.
All right. Debbie from Plano.
Wow.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Debbie's question is, why did the judge...
I wish I could see her face when she hears it for the first time. That's going to be awesome. Hey, and I got to tell, we'll tell everybody else too. Maybe if you send in a question every week, you'll get a jingle too.
Yeah, you'll get a theme song.
Now I have to bribe people for questions? No,
yeah, I know.
But anyways, you may get a jingle if you give us a question every week. So anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, Debbie from Plano asked, why did the judge approve the arrest warrant? Did he ask any questions about the contents of the warrant or the investigation? Okay.
That's a really good question. Debbie always asks the best questions, doesn't she?
She does. That's why she gets a theme song.
That's why she gets the theme song.
Yeah.
Well, so here's the thing. Here's the thing about the arrest warrant. I have no idea what that judge was thinking. I think I made it pretty clear in the episode that, I just don't understand how any magistrate, any judge, any person of wearing a black robe could ever sign off on an arrest affidavit like this. To me, this is just my personal opinion, But to me, there is absolutely zero evidence that points to Brandon being the person that perpetrated this crime. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff that points to him. Okay, well, Charles said he had a temper. Okay, well, a lot of people have tempers that don't kill people.
Right.
Mike said that he killed a mother cat and threw the kittens off the bridge. That would be abhorrent behavior, and that would absolutely make Brandon a horrible person if it was true. But it still doesn't point to him being at the Royce City trailer and committing this crime. And we could go through, as we did in the episode, every single one of these, but there's nothing in this arrest affidavit that says anything about Brandon committing this crime. So I have the same question that Debbie does. How can a judge sign off on this? And, Kenneth Peters is actually, this is kind of scary, but he's actually an investigator now for the Hunt County Sheriff's Department. And, I don't know how the career path goes from judge to investigator, but somehow it did. And number one, how could a judge sign off on that? Number two, I'd like to see kind of some of the arrest affidavits that he's bringing to a judge. And are any of those judges looking at it with a little more kind of inspection than he looked at this other one? The only thing I can think of is it has to be some kind of just like rubber stamping, good old boy, Texas Rangers coming in here with an arrest affidavit. It must be a good, so let's just sign off on it.
I hope he sends me a signed baseball. Oh, wait, wrong kind of Texas Rangers.
Yes, I'd like to get one from Andrews if I can. Elvis Andrews, if you could send me a signed baseball, that'd be great. I'd love you forever. But actually, I have to say, Rougned Odor is my favorite player. So hopefully, I get one from Rugi. But anyways, back to the question. So I absolutely have no idea what the judge was thinking, what Kenneth Peters was thinking. Because there's just I have given this arrest affidavit to many different investigators and a couple judges, and I've sent it to them and said, would you sign off on this arrest affidavit? Or to the investigators, would you present something like this? And every single one of them has said absolutely not. So your guess, Debbie from Plano, is as good as mine. So I really wish I had a better answer for you, but I really the only thing I can come up with is it's a good old boy system in Hunt County, and he probably didn't even read it. That'd be my opinion.
It was 4:59 p.m. on a Friday, and it was 2-for-1 lobster night at Golden Corral. There we go.
No, that's the thing that makes it even worse. Is it was like 9:30 in the morning. You just got there.
Oh God. Well,
so I don't know.
Hey man, Krispy Kreme stopped selling at 10, right?
Well, that would explain why Ranger Collins was going. But what about the judge? No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know.
Oh my.
All right.
It's a good theory, though. I like it.
Debbie from Plano, thank you very much for your question. We obviously appreciate it. So
yes, thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay,
I wish I had a better answer for you, Debbie, but I don't. I'm sorry.
Last question of the Q&A comes from Kelly in Austin. Kelly,
hey, Kelly.
Kelly asks, has anyone talked to Ranger Collins since this case finished, and does he still feel the same way?
This is like two questions in a row that I really don't have an answer. I will tell you though that I have requested of Ranger Collins twice now that I am able to interview him for the documentary Texas Justice, Brandon Woodruff. Don't forget, it's coming soon, right after this podcast ends. Not this episode, but this season. As soon as it ends, we will have, my guarantee is we will have a rough draft at least of the documentary for people to watch. But I have requested twice for him to let me interview him about this case And the very first time he was still working for the Texas Rangers, he sent it to the Office of Media Affairs. I interjected with that guy a couple times. They ultimately decided not to do the interview. And then the second time was actually just a couple weeks ago. I sent him a registered letter and asked him again and said that, if you refuse to talk to me this time, I'm going to tell everybody that you have refused for a second time. Even though I've asked you twice, you're still refusing to talk about the case. So as of this taping, he has not contacted me to talk about the case. Now, one of the things I think that I think a lot of people on the prosecution side are hesitant to talk about the case. I mean, it can't be because the case is still under appeal, because all of Brandon's appeals are exhausted. But so the only reason that I can see that they would be not wanting to talk about the case is they just don't have any answers for the tough questions that we have. So this, we'll let this serve as a third attempt. If Ranger Collins is watching this, please come on our broadcast, come on the documentary, and answer for the questions that we have for you. If there are answers, then I would expect that you would come on and tell us. If there's not answers, if there's just no defense to the things that happen, then then it is what it is. But if he has answers for them, I would absolutely extend that olive branch and would love to talk to him one-on-one, mano a mano, and just see what he has to say.
Yeah, and the same goes for anyone else. We've said it in the past, Charla, Mike, Joe, Dusty, Joe, John, Jordan, Danny, Donnie, Leonardo,
Norma.
Michelangelo, Donatello, Raphael.
and the other thing is that the other pledge that I've made is I will sit down with them and talk with them one-on-one, and I will show the whole video. I will not edit it at all. So it can't be said that I edited things into their mouth or anything like that, or just made it look like they whatever. I would be more than happy to sit down with them on camera, talk with them, and play the whole video for everybody to hear. And that goes for Ranger Collins. That goes for any of the investigators. I've sent, but I don't know if I've told you this or not, but I actually a couple weeks ago sent off requests, my second round of requests, for everybody on the prosecution side. And that includes Noble Walker and Kelly Aiken, the two that were the DAs for the Hunt County that eventually got recused off of the case. Adrian McFarland and Ralph Guerrero, the two special prosecutors from the Attorney General's office. Of course, Ranger Collins and Joel Gibson. And now we're adding, this is the first time actually that I'm adding Kenneth Peters, because that was the first time. I don't know why, but I always had it in my head that it was Judge Beacom, the trial judge, that was the one that signed off on the arrest affidavit, but it wasn't. It was Kenneth Peters. So my first request went out to him. Terry Jones, all those people have now been served, I guess, if you want to call certified letters being served. They now have received my request for a second time, except for Peters, to be interviewed and come on and tell their side of it. So at this point, again, like I said, I would give them free reign to say whatever they want to. If they just want to come on and just yell profanities at me and that's all they want to do, let's do it.
And in the meantime, we can eat Chad's badass chicken.
Wait, are you extending that if anyone on the prosecution side, including Charla, would come on the podcast, that you will feed them Chad's badass chicken?
That is right, but they have to bring their own silverware. I have a thing about that.
Okay. I mean, I think we can provide that for them.
Right. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us once again for the Q&A episode for episode 11 of the podcast. Episode 12 will be releasing on Sunday. Scott, what's that one about?
Oh, episode 12. This is a good one. We're talking about, so now that Brandon is arrested on Monday, Michelle Lee comes in to talk to Ranger Collins, this time on camera. Remember, the first interview was not on camera, so we have no idea what was said other than Ranger Collins' notes. But this time she comes on camera, and so we go over that whole interview, everything that she says about Brandon, everything that she says about what she knows about the day in question. And then hopefully we'll get into just a little bit of Mike's interview because he comes in the next day. I don't know that we're going to be able to get into that. We're doing our final edits, I think, this afternoon or this evening. So there's a good chance we won't be able to because there's a lot of stuff in Michelle's interview. But we'll do our best to try. We don't want to make this a 2-hour episode.
Right. Yeah. No, we don't. Heaven forbid. We wouldn't want goes on and on to write another review.
We do not want him or her telling us that our podcasts just go on and on.
All right, guys. I am your co-host, Mr. C. Derick Miller. You can find out more about me at cderickmiller.com. Buy a couple of books. You can also catch me on the Butterflies Make Me Angry podcast. This week, we will be reading the first chapter to Mike Innenbach's Hunger on the Chisholm Trail, Splatter Western #2 from Death's Head Press. Yeah,
Nice.
I finished reading that one. That one is totally awesome. I think my Splatter Western is coming out in July. I think it got pushed back a month. I think they're releasing Dust by Chris Miller in June. So just, whenever. They've had 2 really good books in this series in a row. I don't want to mess up their track record, so we'll hold mine off until last.
I'm sure it'll be fantastic.
Yeah, everybody else seems to like it. Scott, do you have anything you want to add to this episode?
I don't think so. I think now that we have the new format of doing our Q&As, our once a week Q&A, now we're only doing them once a week. So,
right.
I think we will now be successful beyond all of our imaginations.
Awesome. All right, to find out more about the Brandon Woodruff documentary, you can go to AmericanJusticePodcast.com. You can also go to freebrandon.org. You can listen to us every week, twice a week if you count the once a week Q&A episode, on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube. Right now, we are offering a chance to go into a drawing for a $500 Visa gift card if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. So go to the YouTube channel, go down to the information section, check out the requirements for that. I believe that's it. That's all I got.
I'm thinking about possibly, I think the reason that people aren't kind of really doing the subscription drawing is because they don't really value a gift card. Like they're kind of thinking, okay, like a gift card, what can I buy with a gift card? It is a Visa gift card, but I've been thinking about it. Why don't I just cash that gift card in and we'll just do 5 $100 bills, 5 Benjamin Franklins. What do you think?
We'll mail them to you in a very thin envelope so your postal carrier will have a good weekend.
No, we will have we will present it to them if we can, if they're local, in person, and we'll make a video of it. We'll put it on YouTube. They can be YouTube famous for a day because they won $500 cash from the American Justice Podcast YouTube channel.
Or we can just write them a crumpled up check in purple crayon.
That'll work as well.
All right, Scott. I will see you next week after episode 12. I'm sure we'll have some more questions from there. So everyone, remember, until then, stay aware, stay strong, and get involved.
The American Justice Podcast is owned and copyrighted by Atua Productions, LLC. Your host is Scott Pogensee, and your writer is C. Derick Miller. The theme music for the American Justice Podcast has been created and composed by Josh DeRosa. Scripted and recorded episodes are published every Sunday morning, with follow-up Q&A episodes released on Fridays. You can find the Q&A episodes on YouTube by searching for American Justice Podcast. Atua Productions aims for this to be an interactive podcast where you, the audience, has a great amount of influence on the content of our shows. You can interact with us in several ways. First, and most preferred, is you can leave us a voicemail. Our phone number is 972-942-0444. Be sure to leave your name and the city you're calling from, along with whether or not we can use your voice on the air. If Facebook is more your style, you can log on to our Facebook page at facebook.com/American Justice Podcast. Feel free to leave a comment, or you can message us on Messenger if you have a more pressing question or issue. If you would like to blog about the show, then you can log on to AmericanJusticePodcast.com and tell us what you think there. If you are a tweeter, you can also voice your opinion on Twitter at AJusticePodcast. If you would like to support the show, you can do so in a couple different ways. First, consider visiting our Patreon page at patreon.com/AJPodcast. We have different levels of support that include t-shirts, guest call-in spots, and early access to our podcast and YouTube shows. Next, you can like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get notifications of when we publish episodes. We would also very much appreciate it if you could give us a 5-star review. If you have any comments about the show, or more importantly, any tips on the case we're discussing, please call 972-942-0444 and leave us a message. After all, if the subject of our podcast is innocent, that means someone out there is guilty. American Justice Army? Let's find them.
Before I answer that question, I have to interject something before I forget, because I keep forgetting to tell you. But I've had 3 different people so far say that they will do whatever it takes to taste Chad's badass chicken.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what whatever it takes means. But yeah, so I've had 3 different people tell me that just from your description of how you make this badass chicken, they want to do whatever it takes. And I told them, I said, I think we said what the $100 a month on Patreon is what
That's right.
gets you the, I don't think they wanted to go that far though.
I'm telling you, $100 on Patreon, you can come sit at my dinner table and eat Chad's badass chicken.
And we could eat with the lights on, because that will help pay for the electricity.
That is true. We can't eat with the lights on.
Oh my. God, this is 2 questions in a row that I'm just like, I wish I had an answer for you.
I have nothing to use as a basis of comparison because I never felt him. Did I tell you I had a long day at the office?
I don't know who's blushing more, you or me. Just for the record, I have never felt him either. But anyways, so I got to calm down here for a second. All right, so was the question, does Ranger Collins still feel the same way about Brandon?
Yes.